Okay, I think it is 4 o'clock. So firstly, I want to welcome everyone to day 2 of our ADHD Coaching Summit. Yesterday, day 1, we focused on ADHD and families and education, and we had the privilege of having the summit opened by David Gawork, who is the founder of ADCA. ADCA is the ADD Coaching Academy, one of only a very small number of ADHD coaching trainers accredited by the International Coaching Federation. So we were very honored to have him speak about ADHD coaching and the importance of certified ADHD coaching, which is even more important when you're trying to find a coach to help you with your ADHD. So we're honored again today to have Allan join us. So he's going to be opening day 2 of the coaching summit around the workplace. And the reason for this is that he is the author of a book called, and Mark, introduce yourself. Yes, he's got even better.
It's a book, it's the ADHD Job Seekers A to Z Guide. So that's the book.
Yeah. And Mark, I guess it'd be a good idea to help everyone understand your journey and how you got to get this book out there, just to give, I guess, to start off with, yeah, how this came about. Like, how has your ADHD journey been, and what changed for you recently?
Yeah, well, basically, I didn't have the easiest of sort of pathways to diagnosis. I basically lived a whole lifetime thinking that my what turned out to be symptoms were like my failings. So for most of my life, I felt like a very unintelligent, frustrated person that was almost really, I think, I describe it as being like on a treadmill going nowhere, because in life it doesn't give you the chance to just stop. So you have to keep, plodding along. And life became, a huge, huge struggle. And I think one thing that isn't really spoken about a lot is that ADHD is situational. And, as much as it's no better, it's no worse. But for myself, not having a partner, not having children, which, is not the violin's time, it's what my situation genuinely is. Um, it's extremely challenging because you're living in a world that is expecting so much of you that you can't adhere to, but you're on your own trying to make positive changes. But at the time, because ADHD is so stigmatized, I had no idea that this was actually, all my failings were actually part of something, far bigger. So I went to go and be, to find out. And unfortunately, the doctors, that I had at the time, they weren't very, into neurodiversity. Everything was a battle. Paperwork lost, it was just the whole thing was a nightmare. So I had no idea at the second stage, after having to teach them what, the right to choose is, and to overcome all these, barriers that should not be there when we're living in this world that is encouraging us to deal with the root cause of our problems, to acknowledge, our issues, and, to be able to move forward and achieve your full potential. But that's, that narrative sometimes isn't echoed. And for me, when I was finally diagnosed, after again, dealing with organizations that are all online, everything's done by a portal, everything's done by block text, and then you're palmed off, a lot of the time with highly controlled drugs, left to get on with life. And for me, it was the worst time because it's almost like all the symptoms become blatantly obvious because you've now had it confirmed, but no one teaches you how to deal with it. And the medication for me, and again, it is very individual, but, I found out recently that the medication for me was sending me into psychosis. And so I'm in a situation where I'm completely on my own. I'm being judged by the world by my actions and my behavior. and I'm talking to someone on a portal, and that organization then discharged me because of my communication, which is just so ironic because,
Mhm.
I was being, medicated by them, and unfortunately, something that does need to be highlighted is that psychosis isn't picked up by taking someone's blood pressure and height,
Mm.
and, so it went on because of the medication breaks, and unable to get it. Luckily for me, I actually realized, so, it has been a journey. But for me, I used to follow a lady that I know that you'll know, called Leanne Marskell.
Mhm.
And I basically felt that this lady, when she was sharing stuff, I felt like I was at the time the loneliest person in the world. And I used to read these posts, and it felt like she was the only person that actually understood and I could really emulate. So when I finally found out about access to work, so yeah, so we were 2 years after diagnosis, still weren't really educated about what it was that I had, and I got back into work, and I found out about access to work, and I was determined that I was going to be coached by Leanne Marskell. And I went to Access to Work. They granted me the funding for her company. I started my coaching and talked about my goals. Now, bearing in mind as well, something to be highlighted, and I don't think it is uncommon, but I do think it is, again, something that needs to change, is the fact that I was diagnosed, and 2 years after I was diagnosed, I had the luxury of a verbal conversation with somebody qualified about ADHD.
Yeah.
And, that one meeting that I had with that, person changed a lot for me because it really did break it down and talk about, how, strategy and how things can become easier when you know what you're dealing with. Unfortunately, though, the coach who I was working with, she decided that it was too much with her day job that she was doing. So Leanne did something for me, which in my book, I talk about because I think integrity and doing the right thing for people can be lost a lot. And in the job that I do and working in recruitment for so many years, you can see companies that act with professional integrity and companies that don't. And so Leanne was in the situation where she had, the funding allowance for me. And when she's obviously taken interest and looked at my notes and what my goals were, she actually transferred me and recommended that Stephanie coaches me because you were the lady that coached her to write her book. So,
Yeah,
I do want to thank Lee, and I've never even met
me
this.
too. I'm very
I've,
grateful to
I've
her for
I've
putting us
never,
together.
yeah, I've never
I
even
am
met.
better.
No,
Oh,
it's just
she's
like
lovely.
it's literally like someone came into my life and they've done something so positive that's ended up so well, and I've never really had a chance to thank them. But but then I obviously, came to you and we started to do our coaching, and for me, that is when everything did change because it's like for me, I wanted to write a book, and it was really about breaking down and identifying exactly what was preventing me from moving forward. So really identifying what specifically are the symptoms, and then obviously, what the triggers are for them, and for what coaching did for me, which it was invaluable, and it has without question transformed my whole life, from the person that sat on their own feeling almost beaten up by the world because no one could see how hard I was trying, but I'm just literally being judged by everything that I'm not achieving, and just all the differences. And what coaching has taught me is that to be kind to yourself is so important. And for my own personal experience, I think that there is no symptom that can't be supported. There's no symptom that can't be eased, slightly. Nothing, we know nothing works forever. The one thing that I think holds held me back and a lot of people back is this negative internal narrative that we constantly tell ourselves. And it's hard because I think that when you live in a world where you do mask quite a lot, I think anyone that lives with ADHD, anyone that sees it as a superpower, I do question, because again, I think the education about ADHD in the UK just isn't there, and I can understand how the uneducated can make statements that are made like, oh, I sometimes feel like that, or I'm like that. Yes, we acknowledge the fact that anyone can experience the symptom, but what people overlook and don't know and need to know is that to get a diagnosis is based on severity, the impact on somebody's life. So for me, the fact that Marjorie might go into another room and forget why she's in there, is very sympathetic to Marjorie. However, it's very different to nearly setting a block of flats with 46 flats in it on fire 3 times, because I'm forgetting this, or I'm flooding it, or and it is significant impact. And for me, the biggest, the best thing about ADHD coaching, and for me, was name to tame. Because I describe it now like it's like, if you can imagine a pack of dominoes, and you can imagine like each domino is a symptom, so if you take out those dominoes and you acknowledge it, you create a strategy, a process, something around it, a reminder, delegate. Delegate is brilliant.
Yeah.
um, and then you put the domino back in. Life is, because you're acknowledging it, rather than I'd lived my whole life with these dominoes that were just there struggling to the point that they tipped. And when they tipped, it's the burnout, and everything is, it just goes. Accountability as well was great for coaching, for me. I'm very, if I have an idea, like there's been times where I've rebranded, changed my website, bought a new website. Thank GoDaddy have made a fortune out of me. Impulsive decisions of buying things and whatever. But for me, it's about, being real, for me, reeled in, reminded. I think subconsciously what would happen for me is a symptom would prevent me from achieving that goal, and to justify it, I would create something else. I'll give you a classic example of this, which is quite funny. I was halfway through, um, writing my book, and I was really, really struggling. So I decided that I was going to create a planner to help me organize myself. And before we knew it, I was on another path, and I was releasing a planner on Amazon for people to buy, and it went on for one day. And when I actually received the planner, it was just like, yeah, no, we'll take that off. But it was a positive thing because it made me realize the process of when the book went on. But it's very much for me, having a plan, having a strategy, and having someone to help you execute that, keep you accountable, and help you overcome the symptoms. And name to tame, for me is a brilliant, thing. And breaking things down is a brilliant thing. I think sometimes as ADHDers, we can have a tendency to think, oh yeah, I know it all in my head, but then it can get so scrambled in your head. So, like for some of the people that I'm coaching at the moment, we had this situation. So, it was like, right, okay, I know that you know it, but what we're going to do is we're going to talk it through. So we're going to give ourselves what we call a roadmap. And the roadmap is what we are going to then lock in. We're going to hold ourselves accountable to what that roadmap is. And each stage that is getting you to that actual goal. And it gets very exciting. And I loved, every minute of the final part of the process, because it was the first time in my life that I had ever achieved something that I wanted to achieve, because I'd spent a lot of my life people pleasing. I'd spent a lot of my life creating projects to achieve everyone else's goals, to probably divert from my own miserable life. And I was very successful at it. And people from the outside would think, oh yeah, he looks really successful. And that's another thing that I have found with ADHD as well, is when your symptoms become debilitating and actually prevent you from achieving what your goals are. I've found that if you're somebody that has quite high goals and you want to achieve, higher things, that there's almost this, oh, well, you've achieved enough. Because people look at it like from an out, you looked at my LinkedIn, you think, oh, he's done loads of projects and he's done loads of things, but the story behind all of those, is very, very different. It's so different, in fact, that my next book, which is being released in January, the guy, the Diaries of ADHD, is going to be a diary form of basically my journey from 2018 and the significant points within the ADHD pathway. For lots of reasons I'm doing it. One reason that one thing I've really learned from my coaching and from coaching people is the huge benefit in journaling and writing out, acknowledging how you are actually feeling. And for me, I find it it's my new word, cathartic. Um, writing it out. And to be honest, it's quite strange because a lot of people think, how does he remember it all? And the answer to that is social media. For the last 5 years, I've unwittingly on Instagram stories documented my whole journey. So it's all saved on secret YouTube links, and I'm watching through my life. And it's very, very strange, but I can honestly say it's definitely a lot of it is definitely to do with you. I think it's really important when you're looking for a coach that you find the right coach. I again had some very, very shocking experiences with, what people feel is an acceptable level of ADHD, and I think it's quite dangerous at the moment, where you've got people that have had to put up with far more than they ever should have from life, are finally getting golden opportunities from access to work, which is the biggest hidden secret in the UK. And they are missing out on the opportunity because of the level and the quality of the coaching. And that saddens me a lot.
Yeah. No, it's been an absolute privilege. Like right from the start, I saw the potential that you had, and that's the thing that you're brilliant, and you're one of the most resourceful ADHDs I've ever come across. And it's interesting that Leanne, gave you to me because, as I said very early on, you reminded me of Leanne. Similar. Yeah, you reminded me of Leanne because when I first coached Leanne as well, that book that ADHD A to Z, it was in her drawer. She wasn't going to publish it. And I read it and then I was like, there's no way that's staying in your drawer, right? And, in the way she can just write like you're so articulate, it comes so easily. And the message that you have to give to the world is so important. You can help so many people. So that is my role as coach, is to help you reach that potential and to be able to live the life that you deserve to live, Mark, because you have been through, like many ADHDers, been through it, it's been really rough for you. And there've been times where you felt like you've given up. There've been times where, sometimes you do understandably feel, oh gosh, no one's going to help me. I completely get that. We all kind of, feel that, where we think, oh, this is not going to happen for me. I'm just gonna, sorry, one sec. Yeah, we think it's not going to happen. But then it's about, connecting and reinstilling that hope again, which we've done.
And and do you know what the thing is? It genuinely does help. Because I think for myself, I think we need to look at the fact that the science and the diagnosis and the level of education that you have to have, because doctors aren't qualified to discuss it. So that's the level. But we're living in a world where people are allowed, when it comes to ADHD, to say what they like, and the effect that that's having on people that have put up with far more than they should have in life is really unfair. And for me, the coaching and the ethos of supporting the symptoms and not living that label, for me, is the way forward. Because if you go to I work with people that have issues with talking to their manager, about new ADHD diagnosis, etc. I discuss with my patients the benefit of going to them and saying, "Oh, hello, Irene. I need to let you know I was diagnosed with ADHD," or to go to Irene and say, "I need to talk to you about some difficulties that I'm having. I'm time blind. I can be my emotions, emotional dysregulation. I can procrastinate, whatever it is," and to actually talk in terms of symptoms, because you can't expect at the same time Marjorie to be commenting professionally and with knowledge about something that is usually way above their pay grade. But Maureen does have common sense, and Maureen will know her business. So she might be able to say, "Well, we don't mind if you come in at 10 o'clock and you leave at 6 o'clock, because we know that the rush hour is giving you anxiety and you're literally at number 10 in terms of boiling when you actually arrive at work. So we understand reasonable adjustment, and this is what we're willing to do." And if you are in a supportive environment, you are kind to yourself, which is so important and always a work in progress, always.
Definitely.
And you are doing your best to support the symptoms. And rather than thinking, "Oh, I was supposed to go to the gym 3 times this week and I only went once," let's celebrate the once. Let's celebrate and realize that forward is forward. And I hope we'll finish with you talking about, the employment workshop that is going
Oh,
to.
yes. Yeah. And yeah, and you were talking about that roadmap earlier,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what you've created in your book for people job seeking, wanting to change careers. You've got a step by step.
Because basically for me, with the book, there's two things that I tried to do with it. Well, three actually. The first thing was I wanted it to be a book that wasn't just a book that we've all done it and then you've good intentions and it goes in a drawer. So basically, I saw a YouTube video by a lady called Jessica McCabe. And it was all about the research that she'd done about how to create a book that is ADHD friendly for the reader. So in my book, you'll see that we don't have any blocked text at all. It's all very visual. It's all very it's got QR codes that will take you straight to the tools, which the tools in the book for me are the most important part. One thing that Stephanie taught me, and I think it's brilliant, is we know what to do, but we don't do what we know sometimes. And I think to give the tools with the book that enable you to execute the learning is quite groundbreaking. And also the 10 steps that are at the back of the book that you follow is the roadmap to get you on your way and to set you up to be able to capture every job that is available to you. Far too many people will apply for jobs, wait to hear, don't hear, and the effect of not hearing on a neurodiverse brain is so debilitating. And the fact is, this is an aha moment for you, is your application is usually sitting unopened in a generic email box. And I did lots of research in my book, and I asked 300 employers, when you review your emails, do you review them from the top down or the bottom up? And 80% of them said they review from the top down. So in theory, if you applied to 300 companies, 80% of the time, if you were the first person to apply for the job, you'd be last on the list. And then we get people that go, "Oh, but they might have clicked the button at the top and made it, look all different, like so the most recent comes at the top." Okay, they might have done. They might not have done. We don't know what they've done. That's the point. So I would urge anybody, my top tip for anybody searching for work is to realign what actually applying for a job means. Because to me, it means that I've applied for a job and the decision maker has read my CV and made a decision, because that's what you're thinking is happening. And because you're thinking that's happening, because that's why we're feeling the negative rejection feelings. But if I was to say to you, actually, your CV is not being read, that should encourage people. And that is what people will be learning, different methods and strategies to make sure that this is actually being done. So then we have, and then it will also teach people how to capture jobs before they're advertised. And the reason that we want to do that is because we want to eliminate the competition, which is the only reason that you're not getting jobs anyway. It's never personal. So it's very
Oh,
I
never personal there, Mark. This is the issue with ADHD is though, which is why your book is groundbreaking and so badly needed. Because as we know with ADHD is the rejection sensitivity, the catastrophization, the negativity bias. I mean, it's always personal for an
Yeah,
ADHD.
absolutely. And I totally appreciate that. And I've learned that through the people that I've worked with over the years. And I look back, I've definitely noticed that. And one of the things that I try to do in my book is anything that you do in the job searching process is something that you will have to repeatedly have to do. So even if it's a job application, they're always going to ask you questions about the competencies of the job. So you know roughly what they're going to ask you questions around. When you're doing speculative letters, you're doing application letters, you're doing all the stuff that you have to do as part of the process, it's all repeated. So what I encourage people to do is to have on a Word document or the notes on their phone all their best practice. Spend that hour, get your timer. Another little tip Stephanie gave me. If you get your timer, do it in 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, or 1 hour if you're feeling like that. And you get all your perfect applications written. And then we have this wonderful thing called copy and paste. And for me, if you use that method, because I'm very much a believer, the less time, and I'm not saying quality, I'm saying the less time that you spend actually doing the applications, maybe the less that you will take the rejection, if you are not, because you haven't sat there for an hour, scrubbing it out, thinking about it. Whereas that what you're copied and pasted has been checked by someone. It's absolutely perfect. You couldn't be any better. And you send, and the less time you spend, hopefully the rejection, because it is very, very tough.
To make it more of a process, yeah. So like less personal, more of the process, following the process.
It has to be, it has to be personalized in terms of, obviously it looks like it's for the right job, but I'm saying that you can take a lot of the pressure off. And I hope
you feel less personal. That's what I meant, I think, in terms of the RSD. It's just, well, this is just the process I'm following. I'm doing it. But this is why your group coaching program is so important, because as we know with ADHD, like you said earlier, we know what to do. Well, now we've got your book, and with your book, they'll know what to do, but they won't on their own do what they now know, which is the issue, because particularly when it comes to a spreadsheet or updating a spreadsheet or writing a CV, particularly because these are such RSD triggering events, it's a lot of ADHDs will avoid, one of the things we do with RSD, avoid. I'm not going to put myself out there because of rejection. I won't be able to handle it. But in the group, you're going to be able to take them through these steps, and shame dies when stories are shared. That's what we didn't,
I think it's really important. It is important because, for me, the program will be the process. So getting taking them through the 10 steps, but most importantly, accountability. So it will be sessions of everyone, comes in. You can turn your cameras off, but at the start of the session, everyone has a goal. And at the end of it, we will celebrate how far that person, has come, because forward is forward. And what I will say is to anybody, because some people, they don't know who you are and they think, oh, who's that? What does he know? But for me, I know that what I'm teaching in the book works. And the reason that I know it works is because if it didn't work, there'd be no recruitment agencies in the whole of the UK, because I'm literally teaching you what I learned when I went in recruitment and when I started recruitment. And it's a process that worked very well for me. And when I was diagnosed, it gave me, it clicked as to why I was good in recruitment. So this process is very simple, very ADHD friendly, and very successful.
Yeah, and the group coaching program, as Mark was saying, you're not just going to be talking about doing it. You're going to be doing it in real time with Mark, with the other people in the group. You're going to be doing it together, and that makes a massive difference. So if you are interested, do email admin@thehdadvocate.com. I put that in the chat. And also what I think would be really good for graduates, people, because, I've coached a lot of grads. I wish they had your program I could send them to now because I was coaching them through the process. But like the grads that are looking, applying for grad, yeah, I mean, this is going to be groundbreaking for them, honestly.
Can I just leave you with like one thing? And I think because of my experience of being an all-rounder and understanding the recruitment and finding hidden jobs and seeing that successes, I just feel a little bit like, and my experience, the for neurodiverse people, the recruitment process is very difficult because an interview, for example, if you don't have the questions before, you're pretty much saying to somebody, how quickly can you remember a example of when you have done something that they want you to have done. And for someone that's neurodiverse, just alone on memory issues, the amount of opportunity that's lost out is unreal.
I know it's devastating, really. It's not fair. And I guess as well in the program, you'd also be helping them with like preparing for interviews and making sure that they're asking for any adjustments to set them up to succeed.
Yeah, and also tips, tricks, hacks, and just really a new sending out a new message to them really of how we need to be effective. Because take away neurodiversity is it's almost like we're living with the old thoughts of how we used to recruit, but now we're in this world of the internet and online and opportunities. The fact that you can work remotely now so often, it opens up opportunity, which is so exciting. For the whole of the UK, you could work in theory for a company in Manchester, from London. So there's so much more opportunity. But if you don't know a process that's going to counteract the common issues that job seekers face, you just end up in an inbox, but ignored, feeling all rejected and stuck.
Yeah, yeah. No, so very much encourage anyone that's looking for a job, particularly the graduates, coming out of university, applying for grad positions. Definitely join this program, and Mark will help get you out of your own way, which is so important. So, Mark, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, honestly, it's a pleasure to have you work with ADHD Advocate. And if you don't have a copy of his book as well, if you work in schools, yeah, Amazon. Yeah, you can grab it from Amazon. It's excellent, really easy to read and follow. But again, we usually don't do what we know. So do encourage anyone looking for a job and to follow this roadmap to join the group. Thank you, Mark.